We're going to turn back to the studio. We have Tom Gross with us, political commentator, Middle East expert. This is a story that you've been following very closely since it developed, and you've had a lot of experience with Columbia University, which has seen some of the most honestly revolting statements made by these so-called protesters.
Yes, well, it's the epicenter of what's now spread to over 200 college and university campuses, even ones one wouldn't expect, like the Manhattan Fashion Institute of Technology. Security guards were overrun by a mob yesterday. But returning to Columbia, one of the most hypocritical things is that Hamas, who they've been praising and chanting and saying, we love Hamas, we're all Hamas. Hamas murdered 2 Columbia students in a bus bomb, bus 18 on Jaffa Road in Jerusalem. Those students, I think we should remember them, Matt Eisenfeld from Connecticut and Sarah Ducker from New Jersey. And I don't think students are aware exactly what Hamas is, or if they are, they certainly, are morally, it's morally despicable that they're more interested in the terrorists. In fact, the terrorist who murdered those 2 Columbia students, Hassan Salah, who's presently serving 46 life terms for 46 different murders in bus bombs, he is being called a political prisoner. He's one of the people that Hamas are demanding be released in exchange for hostages, and students at Columbia are demanding his release. And he actually published a book from an Israeli prison last year. The book is called The Buses Are Burning, in which he boasts about orchestrating 3 different bus bombs. These bombs were shortly after the Oslo Accords. They happened in early 1996. So clearly they weren't designed to bring about a 2-state solution. They were designed to stop a 2-state solution. And I would suggest that the protests at Columbia and elsewhere, if these students and others thinks they're furthering the cause of peace, they are not. They are playing into Hamas's hands, and they're making it harder for Israel and mediators to negotiate some kind of temporary truce or hostage deal, because they strengthen Hamas's bargaining position when Hamas see such widespread support at the most elite college campuses throughout the United States.
That's the real question. Are they simply misguided, or are they being guided by an outside hand? They all have the same signs, they have the same keffiyehs. These things are probably not coordinated a mass Amazon purchase, which means they likely have some coordination and funding.
Well, there's definitely some groups, student and other groups, organizing some of these protests. And in fact, the Wall Street Journal yesterday said that they had received funding from 2 groups within the United States. One is a foundation paid for by George Soros and his son Alexander. Another is the Rockefeller Foundation. But I would say that a lot of it is kind of just indigenously grown. And I would point the finger a little bit at the mixed messages coming out of the President Biden himself. On the one hand, he's helped Israel militarily. On the other hand, he has quoted inaccurate or unreliable civilians' casualty statistics from Hamas. He has, on occasion in the last 6 months, claimed that Israel is indiscriminately bombing civilians. And therefore, others in the media, New York Times, so on, have followed on from this. And in a way, they've given the idea to students that there really is some kind of worst genocide ever going on. So a lot of the protests are spreading through outrage at something that Israel's perceived to be doing, which in fact it's not doing. Can I just make one more point about Columbia? 2 days ago, 36 hours ago, some American congressmen came there to denounce the protests, and they were booed when one of them said that Hamas had burned Jewish Israelis alive on October 7th. And they were booed, in other words, people supported the burning of Jewish babies. On the other hand, the Iranian Holocaust-denying former president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was welcomed and cheered at Columbia. It's best known, that speech by Ahmadinejad, because he infamously said, we don't have any homosexuals in Iran. That's what it's best known for. So there's a big double standard there. Yesterday, Ilhan Omar, another congresswoman who has been stirring up these protesters, was given a warm welcome on Columbia. But those other congressmen who have denounced the protests and denounced Hamas are booed by students there.
I think Tom is giving a bit too much credit to the students. Of course, it's a disgrace, but they are ignorant. They do not understand the slogans that they are chanting. You remember President Truman used to call the Congress the Know-Nothing Congress. These are the know-nothing students.
Yes, that is true, but the authorities at Columbia, let's go back to someone like Edward Said, who's like the godfather of Columbia academia. I don't want to say everything he said was wrong, but he made a lot of inflammatory remarks. As I'm sure you remember, he went to the border with Lebanon and actually threw rocks into Israel and encouraged violence against Israelis. And he is revered at Columbia as some kind of great person, and there are others too. So it's, yes, the students are ignorant, but the question is, how do they become ignorant? Who are their professors? What's the hiring process? Who are the administrators at these IEDs?
There are two very significant trends here. One is the Israeli-Jewish connection or nexus. All of a sudden, Israel, which should have been the haven and beacon for Jews all over the world, has become a burden for American Jews and others, at least security-wise, when they go on campus. And the other one is that misguided or guided by overseas forces, as they may be, they will probably go on to represent their generation more than the other side. So we can't ignore the political fact that these are the voters of 4 years from now, 8 years from now, and so on, as the older generation recedes.
I'm actually going to build on that a little bit because, as you've both pointed out, the radical professors of today were the radical students of the 1970s, the same student protest groups that conducted bombing campaigns across the United States and then became esteemed department chairs at these universities, which means the same students right now calling for Jewish blood on these university campuses will be the thought leaders. They'll be department heads and professors in a few years' time. Can that be combated? How do you prevent that from happening?
Well, first of all, the Israel-Palestine conflict is again a political football. A lot of these students don't care less about the Palestinians. It's radical. It's a kind of radicalism, anti-Americanism. They almost want to overthrow American capitalist democracy. So it's not just about Palestine. I would say there is a silent majority there who, if not supporting Israel, they don't want their their classes cancelled. They've paid a lot of money to go to these campuses. The rest of the commencement, some of them are being curtailed or put off and so on. So I'm not sure that that they're not large numbers against. But what we'll see, and I do not welcome this, is it probably plays into the hands of people like Donald Trump. And there are probably a lot of people of all ages looking on and saying the Democratic Party has a problem. It doesn't know how to shake off these people. What I think the Democrats should do is follow the lead of someone like Senator John Fetterman, who has clearly denounced these protesters, and yet his poll ratings have gone up, whereas I think Biden and some of the others have been a little bit ambiguous, and it plays into Donald Trump's hands. So there's a struggle for America here. They're not necessarily the leaders. The kind of Trump types may be the leaders of the future too.
Now, of course, one should not blame the victim, but Israel should have some stock-taking. Why is the Israeli policy so wrong regarding the relative moderates, so that when the violent, the Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the terrorists, when they act, they get such rave reviews in the United States?
Well, I wish it was as simple as saying that...
Of course, it's simplistic.
Were Israel to suddenly announce a two-state solution policy, the protests would die down. Unfortunately, that's not the case. A large number of these students don't want the existence of Israel. They in a way, don't want the existence of any what they see as white colonialist country, and that would include European countries or even the US and Canada itself. So I'm not sure this is even in Israel's hands. There is a momentum to demonize Israel. It's the punching bag, the political football. There's a momentum all of itself that's not really in Israel's hands. Of course, Israel could do better, Hasbara, better PR, but I don't think it will make that.
No, not right now. Could have done over the years. Right now,
yes.
It's too late.
Yes, I agree, but Unfortunately, a lot of this is old-fashioned anti-Semitism. The more we scratch it, we see it's not really about the Palestinian issue at all. They want to attack Israel. They also want to attack American Jews, and one way of undermining American Jews, who they're often jealous of because sometimes they get better marks at university or better jobs because they work harder or more able, and one way of undermining American Jews, or in Britain, I'm from Britain, British Jews, is to have a go at Israel, and it's really got nothing to do with Israel or the Palestinians. If they really wanted a better life for the Palestinians, they would call on Hamas to surrender, call on a moderate Palestinian force to take over, call on them to release hostages. They're not doing any of this. Some of the chants at Columbia have been burn, burn Tel Aviv, and more rockets, more rockets. They don't want more peace, they want more war.
But if your analysis is correct, Asian Americans who are highly educated, hardworking, they will be the next target.
Well, not the next, they already were. The past few months, it was the Stop Asian Hate campaign over this exact topic.
There is some discrimination, but of course, against Asian Americans, because Jews are a much smaller, more vulnerable minority, and this often builds on centuries, even millennia of anti-Semitism. I think a lot of it is subconscious, it's latent, it's been built on. I'd even also add something which I call kind of subconscious Holocaust guilt, so that the more they learn about the Holocaust, and the more they learn how badly Jews were mistreated, in order to make their consciences better, if they can portray Israel to be behaving in almost genocide,
it justifies.
It justifies in their minds. So I'm not saying it's conscious; it's often subconscious. But a lot of the old anti-Semitic tropes are coming in there about Jewish power and Jewish control and everything. So I wish it was as simple as only related to policies that are in the hands of the Israeli government. Unfortunately, it is a huge international problem involving all kinds of anti-capitalism, anti-Americanism, guilt about American slavery and guilt about European colonialism, stuff that's got really nothing to do with Israel or Jews, but it's all being piled on.
Well, I would love to have another half hour or so to talk about it. Unfortunately, we are out of time for this show. Tom, Amir, thank you so much for helping break down the massive and monumental changes we're seeing across Western society. Not changes for the better, it certainly seems, but that'll be another topic for another discussion. Until then, thank you all for watching.